everyday technology. It used to be in the labs. Now it's out and in everybody's
I don't
hands.
think
So
people
what is the
have
change that you are
woken up
seeing
to the fact
and the impact you're seeing on
that
critical
they are
infrastructure?
fast running towards the cliff. I don't think people have, because I genuinely think that the digital infrastructure, fast enterprises today are already fragile. Because I genuinely think security point of view, the digital infrastructure, there are so many enterprises today, and we know that there are huge issues when it comes to security point of view. For example, now we more talk about IT, OT security, and we know that there are in factories huge issues when it comes to, for example, IT security. Now we more talk about IT, OT security today, and digital infrastructure in general, never in the purview is still very fragile. It's islands of different OEM technologies and security today and digital infrastructure in general. I don't want to, is still very fragile. It is islands of different OEM technologies and many on top of this fragility, and you add AI. It is a major issue. This fragility is going to be multiplied. On top of this fragility, you add many AI. And because AI fragility is going to be multiplied to increase the network traffic, many counts. Especially the east-west traffic. Because AI by again is going to multifold increase the network traffic. The number of API calls that somebody, and we all are saying, oh, I'll embed AI at the edge of the banking application. I will do that, but nobody has thought through. If I put a device and if I have a banking application there, or that, but nobody has thing at the edge. Banking application, the number of API calls these have to do. Nobody has thought through. These API calls are long-lived sessions. They are not traditional and inference. So the edge there, or if infrastructure is going to come under edge. Tremendous. The number of API calls these have to do is. That's why I'm saying these API calls are long-lived sessions. They are not traditional API calls. I'm very passionate. So the edge about AI infrastructure is going to come under. I genuinely feel that people are not looking at the foundation. That's why I'm saying that in all our excitement of AI, fragile, and that is one very passionate and excited about AI. The second point about this, I genuinely feel that people are not the scope of this discussion at the foundation AI and cybersecurity alone. Right? So it's also about fragile, and that is one broader trust question. The second point about this is I would like to expand the scope of this discussion. It's not about AI and cybersecurity. The fake, the messages. It's also about you don't broader trust question. Apply that in the enterprise context. I think there was a talk about we all model drifts and so on and so forth. So what we at Tadacom are doing, one is to protect the digital infrastructure. Apply that in the enterprise context through many things. There was a talk about and model drifts. The unfortunate part is I don't think enterprises have woken up to the Tadacom are doing. One is to protect the digital infrastructure. Build a skyscraper with a foundation of a bungalow, which is what they're trying to do. The unfortunate part is when it comes to the drift and the trust part, they can't build a skyscraper with a foundation of a bungalow, which is what they're trying to do. Enterprises, but when it comes to the drift and the trust part of it, and what we mean by that, I do believe that something that brings the context together. Enterprises, because LLMs will provide the AI operating system to make that knowledge and into what we mean by actionable intel is something that brings the context together. You need the agentic. Because LLMs, more importantly, you need to have a trust and governance knowledge which will into control what an agent will do or will not do. You need the context layer. You need the agentic layer. If I take that control, more importantly, you need to have a trust and governance layer. I will configure and ensure this agent will do something what an agent will do or will not do. I can make and if I take that control on underneath in my lot more and say that I will configure and ensure this rather than focusing on whether this LLM is good or that LLM is good. I can make use of this AI operating system is what is required for people to build an application. So which will ensure that all of these are focusing on whether this LLM is good or that LLM.
So that's a great point. In fact,
AI operating system is what is required for people to build an application
from the time of corporate
which will ensure that all of these are governed.
It's time to evolve to corporate. That's a great point. In fact, I was having about how a few days back, and I was saying that and owning from the time of corporate social responsibility building, and it's time to evolve to great perspective, sir. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to bring about how they're controlling to sort of continue the talk about of the AI that they're building digital infrastructure and resilience. Great perspective, sir. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to bring in Richard perspective to sort of continue the talk about AI risks, digital cybersecurity and resilience. So how has resilience in your perspective evolved when we talk about
resilience is
AI
a
risks to
question.
cybersecurity
It brings
and
few
vice
aspects
versa?
that I think are very important. So the question of resilience is a complex
well
question.
understood
So
that
few aspects that I
the
think
people are typically
are
the
very
weakest
important. So
link in
cybersecurity.
It is
The reason is that
well
we
understood
as
that
human beings we are not
the
we were
people
not
are typically the weakest
evolved to
link
deal
in
with
machines,
cybersecurity.
computers, and so on. And
The reason
most
is
of us
that
don't have really
we as human
deep
beings we are
technical
not,
knowledge
we were
about
not
how systems work
evolved.
and so
So
on.
we
To
are
deal
to a
with
big extent
machines,
dependent
computers,
on
and so on.
relatively
And most of us
superficial
don't have
understanding
really
and
deep technical
and,
knowledge about
so we
how
are
systems
more
work
easy
and so
to
on.
be
So we are
tricked to a big
by
extent
different social
dependent
engineering
on tricks
relatively
and so on.
superficial
Now
understanding, and with AI,
And
this is
so we
becoming
are
a big
more
issue
easy
because
to be tricked
how you can
by
distinguish
different
social engineering tricks and so
scam
on
from
now
real
with
communication
with
when
AI,
scam communication looks
this is
exactly like
becoming
the
a
real
big issue
communication.
because
How you can
I'm talking
distinguish
about
deep fakes and so on
scam
from
this
real
is
communication
one
when the
aspect
scam
of the
communication
risk
looks
connected
exactly like the
directly
real
with people.
communication.
The other aspect is that
I'm talking
we want
about deep fakes
AI
and so
to
on.
empower
So
people to
this
do
is
things,
this is one
more
aspect
things
of the risk
and make
connected
them
directly with people.
in
The
an
other
easier
aspect
way.
is
So
that we have
we
those
want
agents
AI
and
to
we give them
empower
some
people to
we
do
want to give
things,
them some
more
commands
things
like do
and,
this for me or
make
that
them,
for me, but
we
in an
don't
easier way. So
understand
we have
all
those
the
agents
steps that
and
the
we give them
agent will
some
take
or we
on
want
our
to give them
behalf
some
when
commands like
performing
do
those
this for me
tasks.
or that for me. But
And
each of
don't
those tasks
understand
can
all
be
the steps that the
there
agent
can be a
will
risk
take
factors
on our
involved
behalf
without
when performing
us
those
knowing.
tasks.
Like, okay, if you
And,
want to perform
and each of
this
those
action, you will need
tasks
to have
can be
those additional tools to achieve
there can
that.
be a risk
and where you
factors
get those
involved
additional
without
tools. Okay,
us
if AI
knowing,
decides
like,
on your behalf,
okay, if you want to
these are the
perform
tools.
this
This
action,
action you will need
software
to have
packages, whatever
those
it is,
additional tools
and
to
they
achieve
get to
that.
your computer
And where you
without
get those additional
this
tools.
being
Okay, if
supervised.
AI decides on your behalf,
then
these are the tools
this is
you
the
need.
problem.
So
software packages,
where I'm
whatever
heading,
it is,
like
and they
resilience
get to
here
your
is
computer
really
without
this
protecting
being
or
supervised,
paying attention to details.
what is
then
actually
this
happening?
is the problem.
What
So
is running
where
in
I'm
the
heading,
background?
like,
How are your
resilience
commands
here
transferred
is
to
really
the agent?
protecting
Is
or
there
paying
a
attention to
possibility
details
what is
for them to be
actually happening?
intercepted,
What
to
is
be
running
modified?
in the background?
So
How are your
so
commands
it's
transferred
even-
to the
it
agent?
was difficult and complex
Is there
even before
possibility for
advent
them to
of
be
the new
intercepted,
AI
to be modified?
agentic approach.
So now it's
So
becoming
it's
even more important to really
it was
go
difficult
into
and
all the
complex
details.
even
And we just
before
heard from
advent
Lakshmi
of
that
the new
that
AI
he sees that we are
agentic
moving
approach.
towards
Now
a
it's
cliff,
becoming,
even more important to really
well,
go
depends
into
on
all
us,
the
of course.
details. And
We
we
just
want to go
heard
fast,
from
we want to
Lakshmi
employ,
that-
we are all excited.
he sees that
about
we are
AI,
moving
but
towards
we-
a cliff.
Maybe sometimes we need to slow down a
well,
little bit and
depends on
make
us, of
sure
course.
we want to go
that the
fast, we want
pieces
to employ,
are
we are all
in the
excited
place and cybersecurity
about
is
AI,
not
but
overlooked.
maybe sometimes we need to slow down a
Excellent,
little
excellent
bit and
perspectives.
make
And
sure
you know, I think
that the
and
pieces
an offshoot to
in
that
the
question
place
can
and
be to
cybersecurity
Ms.
is
Daisy,
not
which is,
overlooked.
what are you seeing as excellent question can be to Ms. Daisy, which is what are you seeing as changing? Here is something which is connected to a lot of things, and especially the connectivity. So how are you seeing changes happening, especially when you talk about resilience, because you're at Cisco, what's going inside digital, and here is something which is connecting a lot of things to a lot of other
touched on a
things.
very important
So how are
point of
you
the
seeing
underlying,
changes
the
happening,
fragility
especially
of
when you
the
talk about
underlying infrastructure.
resilience
And that
what's
is
going inside
something that I want to
digital
reiterate. For the past few years, we've been
touched on a very
publishing an
important
AI
point
readiness
of
the
index.
underlying, the fragility
And
of the underlying.
the good news
infrastructure.
is that we are as ready as
That is
everybody
something
else.
that I want to
The
reiterate.
bad news is maybe
for
we're
the
not
past
that
few
as
years
ready as we
we've
think
been
we are, which is the
publishing
point
an
that
AI
she's making,
readiness
right?
index.
90% of
And just under
the good news
1,000
is that we are as
enterprises
ready as
spoke to in
everybody
India
else.
want
Maybe we're not that
agents
as ready
this
as we
year.
think we are.
40% want
making, right?
that
90%
agent to work
just
alongside
under
a 1,000
being,
large enterprises that we
but
spoke
only
to in
about
India want to deploy.
2/3 of those enterprises really have a
this year.
data
40%
layer,
want
strategy or data
that agent to
platform and
work
a data
alongside a
governance,
human being
strategy,
but only about
2/3 of those
have the compute
enterprises
capacity
really have
they
a
need.
data
Only about
layer,
1/3
strategy
are
or
able
data
to,
platform and a data governance
understand AI threats and
strategy
deal with them. only
And
about
less than
one-fifth
have the
have
compute
the
capacity
innovation
they need
engine. Only about one-third
think
are
about
able to
building and scaling
understand
and
AI
maintaining
threats and
AI
deal with them.
applications and use cases.
And less than
So
one-fifth have
clearly
the
there is this
innovation engine
ambition versus
to
reality
think
gap
about
which we have to
building
solve
and
for. That's not a
scaling
problem
and maintaining
as long as we all
AI
know that
applications
that's
and
where
use
it is, and they
cases.
were
So
acutely
clearly
aware
there
of
is
this
issue.
ambition versus
The other
reality
thing is
gap which we
AI
have
is
to solve
essentially
for.
leading
That's
to
not a problem.
what this
As
means
long
is
as
that
we
we
all
are
know
rewiring and
that's where it
restacking
is,
the
and they were
enterprise. It's not just
acutely
networks,
aware
it's
of this
compute
issue.
It's silicon.
I
The
know
other thing is
at
AI
the
is
national level,
essentially leading
silicon
to
security
what this means is that we are rewiring and
is a
restacking the
conversation. So
enterprise.
all
It's not just
this
networks, it's
resiliency
compute,
which we used to build
it's
almost
silicon,
like a
I know,
bolt-on at the top and
at
at
the
the
national
national
level,
level, used to think
silicon
of it
security
only as cyber
is a
resiliency is a
it's a
conversation.
system
So
resilience
all
which is
this
built into
resiliency
all
which we
layers
used to
of the
build almost like a
infrastructure
bolt-on at the
all
top,
layers
and
of the AI
particularly
stack.
we used to think of it only as
That's
cyber
why at
resiliency.
Cisco,
Since you
it's a
asked me a
system
network
resilience
specific
which is
question,
built into all
we
layers
used to
of
have
the infrastructure
we used to
stack,
deal with
all layers
connectivity
of the
largely
AI
as connectivity.
And that's why
And now
at
we know
Cisco,
the persona
you asked
of
me a
that
network
endpoint
specific
that connects to an
question.
end device.
We used
that
to
might be
have,
doing an
we used to
inferencing
deal
or
with
it's in the
connectivity
data
largely
center. That
as
persona connectivity
has to be that it will
and
be
now
on
we
one
know
side
the
it will
persona
be a
of
switch
that
or a
endpoint
router.
that connects to an
But
end
on the other
device
side, it
that
will
might
also be a
doing an
security
inferencing
defense
or
point.
it's in the data
So this
center.
ability
That
of
persona
building special
has
grade
to be
of
that it will
security
be on one
appliances
side
and
it will
putting
be
them
a
in
switch
various
or a
parts of
router.
the network.
But on the other
is
side,
fast
it will also
becoming
be
an
a
outdated
security
idea,
defense
and
point.
so this
Point we've
ability
got
of
to do
building
is
special
we've got to
grade
break
of
it into a
security
number of
appliances and
virtual
putting them in various
instances
parts of the network
that can go wherever
is
you
fast
want.
becoming an
security
outdated
policy.
idea, and to be
Point we've
so it
got
becomes
to
a very
do is we've
virtual
got to break it
distributed
into a
mesh
number of
rather
virtual
than hardware.
instances.
Yes, there will be hardware. I'm
that
not
can
saying it'll
go
away,
wherever you
but
want.
this
Ability
security
to
policy
infuse it into the fabric.
so it becomes a very virtual
tends to be the all
distributed mesh
pervasive fabric.
rather
That's
than
the way
hardware.
Yes, there will be
Cisco
hardware.
we're
I'm not
thinking
saying it'll
about
go
it.
away. But this
So this
ability
domains
to infuse it into the
of
fabric,
networking and security
where
are
and
crashing
networks
together.
tend to be the all-pervasive fabric.
So
that's
secure
the way,
networking
at
is
least
like
at
the
Cisco
conversation
thinking
about
in
it.
the network space.
So this
particularly.
domains, the other part
of
about
networking
this is
and
the performance
security are
requirement, which
crashing
also
together.
Lakshmi alluded to.
AI
So
will
secure
put pressure
networking is
on
like the conversation.
the underlying
in
infrastructure
the
in a
network
way. It's an
space
exponential
The
technology.
other part about
the
this is the
demands it will
performance
create on
requirement,
its
which also
underlying
Lakshmi
layers
alluded
is
to.
also exponential.
AI will put pressure
So we've got
on
to
the underlying
almost build a
infrastructure
new
in a way. It's an
category
exponential
of
technology.
The
Silicon
demands it will
systems,
create on its underlying
applications,
layers is also
everything. A new
exponential.
category,
Right? So we've
has
got
to be built, and we have to build
almost
it in new
build a
ways.
new
You cannot build it in the
category
ways of how we built it in the
Silicon
past.
systems,
Applications is an interesting one.
everything.
Right? We
A new
used to
category
give an input
has to be built, and we have to
same
build
output
it
on
in
the
new
other
ways.
side.
You cannot build it in the
But
ways
now, if you are
of how
going
we
to
built it in
deploy
the
AI
past.
models, this thing is
Applications is an
probabilistic
interesting
and
one, right? We used to
there's a
give an
refer to it.
input.
expect
You
the same
want
output
to
on the
get
other
it to a
side.
degree of
But now,
assessment so
if
that,
you are going to deploy
cannot
AI models, this
expect
thing
in
is
a
probabilistic.
financial application or a
sir,
very
refer to
important citizen service application,
you
you
want
want
to get
input
it to a
and the
degree
output
of
is assessment
has
so
to
that,
be
you
deterministic, but
cannot
you're using at the
expect
core
in
of
a
it a
financial
probabilistic
application
technology.
or a
So that
very
refinement
important
is also
citizen
takes
service
a
application.
whole
You
lot
give
of
an
work.
input and the
So
output
it's
is
rethinking
has
in
to be
ways
deterministic,
in
but
all
you're
layers
using at the core of
the
probabilistic
from silicon
technology.
to
So that
software
refinement
to
is also
systems,
takes
you have to
a whole lot
rethink
of
everything.
work. Every
So
rule
it's,
we have
it's
to rethink.
rethinking in ways
Excellent,
in
excellent.
all layers.
And since you brought in
of
that
the,
perspective of
from
rethinking,
silicon
reimagining,
to
and
software
how
to
we're using AI in
systems,
the operating
you have
system
to
of the company,
rethink everything.
I'd like to bring
Every
in Darshan
rule we
here.
have
So
to
Darshan,
rethink.
you do a great work. You do a
Excellent,
lot of
excellent.
great work. And since you brought in that perspective of
creating,
rethinking
content as well as
and how we're using AI in the operating system of the company, of course, there's CXOs. I'd like to bring in Darshan here. So Darshan, you do a great work. You do a lot of great work here. But then creating the other content as well as doing consulting, thinking about when very large AI, of course, still a compliance thing, and has it very highly ranked official of the government sitting here. But then,
first of all,
what are
thank
the
you.
other
I'll
six
probably
CISOs,
add some
CXOs
context to
thinking
whatever I've
about
heard so
when it
far.
comes to
So,
AI? Is it still a compliance
first
thing,
of all, my view
or has it percolated
is
into
any
strategy?
technology disruption brings in. First of all, thank you. So I'll probably add some as well as context to whatever I've heard so far. I'm sure the other panelists have rightly First of all, my view, the fear construct is any AI in cybersecurity, and rightly so. No disputing that as well as truth. But there is a huge, the other panelists have rightfully covered cybersecurity, the fear construct of AI, because we are a hardcore and rightly cybersecurity company. company. No disputing. I see a lot of truth. But there is a huge hope as a country, India, from a cybersecurity. We are at the sweet spot. We are a hardcore deep tech cybersecurity company. I see a lot of it is very aptly crafted, because I think we as a country, it's a huge opportunity for us. Can also be we are at the sweet spot, and I'll tell you why. Intersection between cybersecurity has so far been a very topic is very aptly crafted. Because I think it's a huge opportunity for us. Always had an advantage also utilized. I'll tell you why. Cybersecurity has so far been a very asymmetric. Because they just need to get one thing right, and we need to get the intruders have always it's always been asymmetric. But with AI, now all of a sudden we are at a level playing field. Because they just need to get from a technology standpoint, we need to identify a needle in the haystack. So it's always example one classic with AI and agentic. Now all of a sudden we are at a level playing field. Because at the end of the day, from a technology standpoint, to identify a needle, it is. For example, one classic use case can be an analyst looking at a screen, security operations, and almost an inhuman job. Because at the end of the day, if you have today with AI, now we've got a level playing 24/7. We've seen those kinds of analysts getting deployed at our SOC, and where almost the shift handover is done by an agent, so to speak. So today with AI, now we've got a level playing field. On the hope side, those kinds there is a lot of opportunities that even a shift handover is done by in terms of talent. I mean, we have a lot of youngsters in real use cases. So who are looking to grow. Hope side, spoken so much about other lot of the opportunities that job opportunities. In terms of talent, we can create a lot of cybersecurity talent. Who are looking to grow, because cybersecurity so much about other services, other areas evaporating in terms of job opportunities. Actually, I think we can create the world's cybersecurity talent. So, I think we are at a very cybersecurity and AI are not opportune time for us to really write this. Actually, cybersecurity world-class talent AI needs which can address. So now on the second part, which I think we are at a very what we are hearing at the CXOs globally, for us since we deal with a lot of people in the payment ecosystem and create world-class CXOs obviously have the same. So now on the second part, which you just sum up, are terms of what we are hearing at the CXOs globally, since we deal with a lot of people. There is amount of fear that is also coming in. CXOs obviously have these are real problems. For example, so some are fakes or being a CISO or phishing attacks or a CIO robust with AI. There is amount of fear. But one of the key things that we are in, because these are real problems, right? Explains that yes, those are things that you need to address. Phishing attacks are becoming more robust. Can you also look at how you can take advantage of? But one of the key things that we are trying to, Lakshmi rightly pointed out, how do you have explain is that yes, those are things that you need to address. AI security operating system. Can you also look at how you can take advantage? You should have a playbook on how to leverage AI. How do you have a rather than being on the defense layer? Similarly, we talk those are the AI security operating system, right?
No, excellent views, and thank you very much for those perspectives. And I'm glad that I still see people coming in. This is an interesting session.
So those are the
and some people standing as well. So I would like excellent views, and thank you very much for those perspectives. I'm glad that I still see people coming in. What I just asked, interesting session. Here is something which is some people standing as well. So at the top, I would like to bring in Pradeep while it is pertaining to strategy. A bit as a follow-on to what I just asked, that we should have. Here is something which is function within at the top. What are you saying currently? While it is just India, but strategy as well as a bit.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Do you think that
probably adding on to what Darshan said,
dedicated function within the
I don't mind the hope and the fear thing, because being in cybersecurity space, both of them, thank you for that, more to what we can do. So probably adding on to what Darshan industry as a whole, for the country as a whole, if you I don't mind the hope and the fear thing, when we look at being in cybersecurity space, when we talk to, let's say, leaders, and both of them do add more to what in India across the world, for the industry as a whole. Predominantly, when the conversation is about AI, when we look at the topic strategically, when we talk to, let's say, leaders in competitiveness, companies, and ability to bring in, let's say, across the world, right? What predominantly often gets the conversation is about AI. AI is quite towards shaping the innovation within the enterprise, competitiveness, and ability to bring in, let's say, productivity. Cybersecurity, right? What often gets missed can no longer be just about AI is quite reshaping the data equation. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Cybersecurity is still needed now to be able to identify all the systems within your enterprise. So beyond can no longer be just about operating systems, as well as be able to protect the data that is. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Cybersecurity is still needed. It is to be able to identify all the systems within your enterprise AI landscape, which is the extended enterprise. I love to how well as be able to protect the data that is be about all of these systems. So going forward, it is cybersecurity needs to evolve to start even protecting decision making and trust. I love to how trust is starting to become going to be about measurable. Right. So going forward, can cybersecurity, how can it evolve to start protecting all of these mechanisms are going to come in a way because that we are able to starting to become measurable risk right through provenance and call out whether this particular transaction that you're doing, whether it's a payment. Now all of these mechanisms are going to come in communication, that we are able to identify, measure, rate, and then accordingly and call out whether this particular transaction that you're doing, whether it's a payment, right? Approval, so that's something that we are seeing, and is AI in this context trustworthy or not? And then accordingly is a force multiplier, allowing the transaction to go through. For us as defenders, right, we are seeing like the patient said, and how AI in this context is detect, identify threats is a force multiplier, right, on both sides. And speed that we have never seen before. We are seeing like Darshan said, and definitely how bringing in again, we are able to. So if we ask, detect, is it going to identify threats, revamp how we do and run scale and speed. A little yes, it's not going to replace all the analysts, and definitely, right, definitely in terms of certain tasks that we are doing. So if we ask, okay, already started saying Microsoft with revamp how we do how it can automate tasks. A little yes, like it's not going to different agents doing different tasks of the SOC life. But definitely in terms of certain tasks that we are doing. Now, but in addition to that, it's also with its security copilot attackers how in the other side of the equation, which is it is in different agents doing different tasks of the SOC life scale. So we're already starting to see that. Think social engineering. Now, but in addition to that, it's all of these manipulations helping how it's happening at the other side of the unprecedented scale, which is that's going to continue, and we're going to see it continue for think phishing, few years. Think social engineering. That's where we're headed. Now, all of these of AI-related phishing, it's happening at unprecedented scale. Definitely manipulation. That's going to continue, and we're going to see it continue for going to impact the industry as a whole. Because now that's where we're headed. I would say that's pretty much how phishing, all of these, the shift is manipulation. The tectonic shift is happening right across. How this is going to impact the industry, I would say, as a whole. Working with leaders and I would say that's pretty much how to look at all of these. The shift is how to look at tectonic shifts and how to frame these risks. And here, so usually we see these three. I would say working with leaders and board members, we are looking at am I complying with the EU AI? Right? Am I complying with these risks and how to frame these risks? Sectoral guidance. Here's usually so it's more of a check in the box approach. One is the maybe helps with me in protecting against am I complying with the EU AI, not with systemic risk? Am I complying with let's say DPDP or DAISY or the sectoral guidance? The second angle, which in the box approach, have started to maybe helps with me in protecting against the boards starting exposure, but not models am I using? Is it reliable? Is it safe? Is it trustworthy? The second angle, which some what is the risk if this particular model or service provider, when the boards are starting to ask down? The model, the operational risk angle that we are seeing. Is it reliable? Is it safe? The third angle, which I think, and it's very what is the risk if this particular model or service provider who is providing that model goes down? Wherein being able to call out that we are seeing more of. If I'm using this particular angle, which AI, I think AI, it's very few companies doing today is identity strategic, right? That is wherein being able to call out impacting the reputation. If I'm using this particular, if there's an AI customer, AI, what is my exposure in financial terms? Now, these are questions that boards would start to need to ask because we are using or impacting the reputation of my organization in order to how we able to measure those financial terms. And these are questions that boards will start to need to ask and be able to we are starting to ask those questions, and that's what at the end of the day boards are concerned in being able to how we able to measure those stakeholders and shareholders. How do you quantify risk in financial terms and be able to convey that to the board as well? Because that's what at the end of the day boards are concerned in being able to convey to the stakeholders and shareholders.
When we're seeing that's great, and those are some interesting. We're implementing AI to the whole conversation. So systems. I'd like to bring you in now, from your vantage point. So when we're seeing when we talk about India's DPI. Citizens, they're implementing AI into, if you will, systems which cater to how do we make sure that the AI deployments that we're doing, and what capabilities do we have to make sure that these citizen deployments are secure and they're taking care of the risks? So how do we make sure that the AI deployments that we're doing, and what capabilities do we have to make sure that
these really struggling with getting the cybersecurity maturity across all sectors?
That the fellow panelists
the financial sector, for example, is mature. But let's say take the health sector. It's not as mature as others. We are really struggling with. If you look at the enthusiasm for maturity health sector to adopt AI, you will find the financial sector level of enthusiasm is similar to what. But let's say take the health sector. It's not as mature. So that is a big challenge. But if you look at the enthusiasm, for example, the health sector, for example, we've had which is a recent meeting. Level of enthusiasm is similar to what is the cybersecurity posture of that sector. So that's a big challenge. Getting we've been engaging with this digital divide. We have a cybersecurity divide. Recent meetings also to say that how do I improve the cybersecurity going to be there across. That's a big challenge actually in different sectors. So that is we had this digital divide. We have a cybersecurity divide that's there. I think is the AI divide that's going to also coming up with framework different sectors. So that is a challenge that access to that framework and understand what is really required. There I think is the capacity and the talk of SS coming up with the AS frameworks, WebSecure, is it doing the work access to this framework and understand what is those assessment frameworks now. So, if you're aware, of assessment, the testing and assessment part is an important part. Secure, creating that infrastructure for support, so that people we don't have those assessment frameworks now. So, if you're aware, the department, the testing and assessment part is an important part, and creating that infrastructure so that people could go and then, if you're aware of it. Similarly, we from our office also we funded the department. DRDO has come up back November of 2020 ETI project for coming with an assessment framework for AS. Similarly, we from our office also one is the security aspect of it, and the other is of course the November of 22 the functional project for coming with somebody claims framework for AS does something. One is the security aspect of that. So I think the other is of course one is the capacity building part, and the other is the having the frameworks that somebody claims that this AS. One thing good about this country is that we have an institutional this framework. So I think established. One is the capacity building part. And the other is the having the frameworks in place is good. They're institutional. One thing good about this country, and also the sectoral regulators, also framework that's been establishing regulations in the sense that if you want to try out something new, we have got the certain. You have these regulations that help you to institutional frameworks. So I think also the sectoral regulators also come up with financial sector regulations in the sense that if you want to try out something new. So I think people start using these sandboxes. So I think prove technologies, these applications like in the financial sector, and that will help them to actually understand how it really works before they deploy production. People start using these sandboxes to prove technologies, to prove applications, to prove use cases.
Awesome.
And that will help them to actually understand how it really works before they deploy production.
It's enlightening and enriching for all of us.
That I think would help
your perspective, especially
going forward
towards it. I'd like to bring in Lakshmi sir. Thank you, sir, and I think it's next question. So it's enlightening and enriching. Sir, if we reconvene 5 years from now, especially what the government is doing here, I'd like to bring in Lakshmi sir from Tata. What did we do? What did we get right for the next question? So, sir, if we reconvene 5 years from now,
discussions are very healthy. Right? Whether
here,
AI,
what are we going to be talking about?
Lens,
what did we do? What did we get right?
With a fear lens, I think we need to. I think these discussions are very healthy. On two comments. One is with a positive lens assessment, or with a fear lens. I think we need to. Where do we want to be 5 years from now? On two comments. One is the next 5 years will determine the health of the company for the next 50 years. Because the technologies are moving very fast. So for an assessment framework, we developed a framework ourselves. We studied a lot of material. We didn't find something good for the next 50 years. So we developed an assessment framework. Because the technologies are moving very fast. On one axis, so for an assessment framework, we developed a framework ourselves. We studied a lot of talent. We didn't find something good. Platform. So we developed an assessment framework. No point in doing individual use cases. Plotted the capability. How many use cases will you do? It includes a platform approach, which is where we said AI platform, which is when I said, look, is mature. No point in doing individual use cases. We're going to plot an organization. How many use cases will you do? Talent. You need a platform approach, which is where we said AI operating system is required. I don't know whether people have appreciated this. So on one axis, we're going to plot the capability. Even now in the discussions, I see people talking about how AI can help automate things and do things. I don't know whether people have appreciated this. No, that's not what AI is. A very different paradigm. AI. Right. Even now in the discussions, I see while the previous technologies of cloud can help automate things and do things faster. Internet have helped companies to scale transactions. AI is going to scale decisions. And when you're scaling decisions, the previous technologies of cloud and altogether, right? And we are still talking in the old paradigm of companies to scale transactions. AI is going to scale decisions. So this is a new paradigm. So in the scaling decisions, you need to think of the culture dimensions would have to be, and we are still talking in the old paradigm of what task and find some of the younger talent are more. So this is a new paradigm. So in the capability axis, the culture dimensions would have to be, so I think the whole talent and capability equation, I find some of the younger talent, we're going to plot more easy to train on AI. And the other axis is on the outcomes. What outcomes do you really want to deliver? So I think the whole talent and capability equation is one axis. We're going to plot our outcomes could be more. And the other axis is on the outcomes. Could be more on what outcomes do you really want to deliver? All those outcomes need AI. And there, I must admit, we ourselves are some outcomes could be more on the revenue. And I hope outcomes we as be more on the trust and the customer satisfaction. And all those outcomes need and that needs to be defined and that we ourselves visualized. And only then you can move towards that. And that's what we are driving we as a company towards. And all the platform development that we're doing and that needs to be defined and that needs to be visualized. Shared some of these assessments to our customers. That's what we are driving. So that is one. So I hope that all the platform most people would see themselves moving towards strengthening our infrastructure in 5 years. And we've shared some of these assessments to the second thing. So that is worried about. I hope that context most people would see themselves moving towards again, when people talk about AI and strategy. The second thing that I worry about, I believe that like in the previous technology when we had internet and is again, when people new business talk about AI and strategy, we had intermediaries coming, the booking.com. I believe that like in the previous technology when we had internet, or fintechs who came and there were things new business models and the larger banks had intermediaries. The larger entities woke up to the fact that disintermediated money their lunch. Or fintechs. So and that's what happened in the previous wave of the larger banks. In the AI, only when I think similar disruption is to the fact that these people are going to eat their lunch, don't know where and when and what. So and that's what happened in the previous strategy does not in the AI. I think similar disruption is waiting to happen. We would have missed the bus. So 5 years from now, I would expect a new class of companies. If a strategy does not think AI native as to what disruptions are going to disrupt your existing business models. So 5 years from now, I would expect a new class of companies.
And sir, one last question to you, Nalin sir.
AI native.
If you were to give me a call 5 years from now and say, Samrat, this is how nation states have changed. And sir, one last question to you, Nalin sir. If you were to give me a call 5 years from now and say, Samrat, this is how nation states have changed.
Adoption of AI is
what would that be?
Advantage. So that's why you have to. One is you don't have any other AI because there are other nations which don't adopt. There are other enterprises going to adopt AI, competitive, and they're going to try to look at how do I do. So that's why you have to. So that way you don't have any other. So going down, you'll find that there are other nations who don't adopt. There are other enterprises going to adopt. And this conference is going to try to look at how do I do business. 5 years down the line. So that way, the other is protecting yourself. So going down, you'll find that because it's a very powerful tool. It's a powerful tool, and then this conference is very good for that. 5 is just a thought process now, but I think the other is protecting yourself. Pointed out, just 1 year, it's a very powerful tool. Development is a powerful tool. We do not know where this is really going. So the thing is, it's just a thought process, but I think as pointed out. Just 1 year through that, how is this technology going to affect the way we do business? We do not know where this is really going. And so the thing is for us to be then this development of capacity, capability, and look through that, how identify the dependencies that the way we do business technology is adopted, and try to see that how do I then also mitigate then this development of capacity, capability, and this is where I think identify the dependencies that we have, that this technology is adopted map for, and try to see that how do I mitigate.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you all the panelists for taking time out and agreeing to do this for the audience. I see the room is full and a lot of people waiting on the sides as well. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you all the panelists for taking time out and agreeing to do this panel that we have here together. We have to conclude this panel only for the paucity of time. Otherwise, we would have gone on. Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for the esteemed panel that we have here together. We have to conclude this panel only for the paucity of time. Otherwise, we could have gone on. Thank you very much.
Today we've all gathered here for the AI Impact Summit 2026. Namaskar, distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the government and the people of India, it is my profound honor to welcome you all to AI Impact Summit 2026. I respectfully welcome the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, whose visionary leadership has positioned India at the forefront of digital transformation and responsible AI innovation. It is with great pleasure that I extend a very warm welcome to His Excellency Emmanuel Macron, who will be joining us very soon, the Honorable President of the French Republic. I also warmly welcome Shri Ashwini Vaishnav, Honorable Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. We are profoundly honored by the presence of heads of state, policymakers, global business leaders, researchers, innovators, and distinguished delegates from across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this global platform for dialogue, collaboration, and innovation. Welcome to the AI Impact Summit 2026. Distinguished guests, when a nation's resolve aligns with humanity's aspirations, technology becomes more than an instrument. It becomes a defining force of our time, where once the pen shaped revolutions, today code is shaping the future. Inspired by the visionary leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, this grand confluence of artificial intelligence is being guided by a confident and self-reliant India, where data is not merely numbers, but the heartbeat of the aspirations of millions, where our goal is not competition through technology, but building bridges of harmony across humanity. We now present a short film on the AI Impact Summit 2026.
Thousands of years ago, when power was measured by conquest, Bharat measured it by understanding. Stone rose into temples as disciplined geometry. Cities were planned as living systems. It was here that the void was given a name. Shunya, the zero. Before medicine became a science, life was understood as a system. The body learned stillness through yoga. The mind learned clarity. From Nalanda to the digital age, India has built shared tables of learning. And when the world broke, this wisdom became a shield. Care crossed oceans with open hands. Because when India heals, it heals the world. India reached for Mars, carrying 1 billion dreams with it. Those dreams were built in the streets, the farms, and the palms of 1 billion hands. We built a bridge for every nation to cross into the future. What began here became shared digital public infrastructure, offered to nations as a partnership. Now the world stands at another threshold, the age of artificial intelligence. The world brings compute, servers, speed. This timeless civilization brings the compass of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. We placed AI at the heart of the human experience. Through the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, health records became portable. In our clinics, AI brings earlier diagnosis and better care to millions. In our fields, AI now speaks the farmer's dialect. In our schools, it becomes a personalized teacher for every child. Through AI in our courts, justice found new clarity in the digital age. This is technology expanding human capability, not replacing it. When systems are designed for all, humanity moves forward. Not upward for a few, but forward for many. As intelligence scales beyond borders, a larger responsibility emerges to ensure it remains democratic, inclusive, and accountable. This is AI for good. India does not lead to stand apart. It leads to hold the circle together, ensuring that the Global South has a voice as a co-author of the intelligence age. From the creation of zero to the governance of intelligence, this is India. This is Bharat. As leaders, innovators, and nations,